Okay, recorder's on. Take one. Go for it.
This is Myron Relic, aka the Jackhammer, and you are listening to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith. So sorry.
You're good.
For my view, you can reinvent yourself at any age, like me.
Perfect. I love it. And you know what? I think I want to be Jack now because Jack sounds cooler than Jeff. I'm just kidding. No, it's perfect. Hold on. I'm going to hit stop. I'll be right back.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Nicholas Jordan Moore, thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer and welcome to the show. How's it going? Thanks for getting up so early.
It is going fantastic, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
So you are in Hawaii. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been on the big island of Hawaii for about 3 years, but today awesome. I'm moving to Oahu.
Good for you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, the Hawaiian rat race. You'll love it.
Spreading my wings to reach. I'm excited. Big city, spreading my wings, reaching more people, and
there you go.
Yeah.
So you got a new website, vulnerabilitybook.com. So talk a little bit about the book, Who Am I, and the website and the free stuff and anything you want to talk about.
Sure,
for the
Jeff.
book.
Yeah. So the website will give you the first free chapter of my book. My book is titled Who Am I? Vulnerability Equals Powerability. And Jeff, the purpose behind me writing my memoir was to help people feel more comfortable in their own skin. We're all human. We all do terrible things sometimes. We all hurt people sometimes. We're all weird in our own ways. And the sad part is a lot of us feel like we're alone, or people won't understand us, or people will never get that, or they'll just shame me or guilt me. They won't understand about this terrible thing that I did when I was young. But the thing that we don't realize is that we're all human and we're all do these things, and we're way less alone than we actually think.
Way less, yes.
I have a family story that needs to be told. So there's more to my book than just that simple little concept. You know, I really am trying to help people forgive themselves, find more compassion and love for themselves, because the more forgiveness, compassion, and love that we have for ourselves, the more forgiveness, compassion, and love that we're going to have for everybody that we come in contact with throughout our lives. And I really believe that the more open and honest we can be, the more we can realize that we're not alone and that it's okay to not be okay. I know that's a big thing going around these days, but it's so true. You know, we're all going through it. It's a very confusing human experience. And
I think
if I can help people.
I went through that too, so I can relate. Yeah.
But yeah, that's in it in a gist. Again, I have a very heavy family story that intertwines with it all. And
right.
It's my journey of self-discovery. And there's also self-reflection questions at the end of each chapter. So it is interactive. I'll ask the reader to reflect on their own lives after I tell part of my vulnerable story.
Right.
Just to get back in it. You know, self-reflection is incredibly powerful. And the way that we can grow and learn and evolve as a species is to be open and honest about these things and not hide.
Yeah. That's basically part of the mission of this show. So I could tell like all kinds of stories too, but let's not do that right now. We'll put pins in this so I like to do, basically, you know, whenever there's a tangent, you should just grab it, because my brain is like that. Like if I let it go, I won't get it back. So I'll take notes, but before we get into like sharing like notes on like this weird thing that we call being human, let's go back in time and get some of that family story that you were talking about,
Sure.
because it is super vulnerable. You go all the way back to high school. You talk about your dad and growing up in Texas and football culture. I've read like a lot, but not all of it. So I don't remember where I got, but I think it was about where you had the new girlfriend and shit was about to go down. And then I got really busy. I was like, damn it.
Okay, so I'm guessing it's right after I got out of college, I'm guessing.
Maybe.
The girlfriend babe.
Yeah, maybe. Sorry, I don't remember, but that's okay.
It's all
That's
right.
why you're here.
Yeah, that's why I'm here.
We can get the highlights. And I love it when you send me the book, but there's this voice as I'm reading. I'm like, don't read too many spoilers. Because I like being surprised in the conversation. So,
Right.
yeah. And it makes, like, I know a lot more about you than most guests right now because I couldn't stop reading. So thanks for the free book. It was awesome. Thank you. It was a nice review copy. And I enjoyed what I got through. And I intend to finish it. So there's that. So, but
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Let's get into, like, you grew up in Texas. So let's get to just say high school and talk a little bit about your family life in high school. And, you don't have to get super down in the weeds, but let's go over some highlights.
Sure, Jeff. Yeah. So I grew up in a very patriarchal household, which, as many of us did, especially in the South, racism was also something that was a normalcy where I was from.
Gotcha.
I had Black friends and I played football with Black friends, but there was just this, underlying, understanding that, they're different and they, just these negative context of what that meant. But these things were taught to me as a child.
Right.
And
it's part of the culture.
You grow up, it is part of the culture. And as far as being a man, especially in the South, and what I learned from my household is that the way that you show that you're a man is that, first of all, it's physical dominance, like showing that you're not afraid of anything, getting in fights,
right?
Proving your dominance over women.
Wow.
Which is something that, I've learned the hard way, and in a lot of ways that, just how important it is to respect the divine feminine and the feminine in all the ways.
Right.
And then it's also, all right, how else do you to show that you're a man? You go out and make a lot of money in the world.
Right.
So you make money, you prove that you're not scared, you get into fights.
Wow.
And you prove your dominance over women. And seeing this in my own household, I guess inherited some of these traits where I grew up thinking I was a good kid, thinking that I would never do some of the terrible things that I did growing up. And when your dad has these traits, and I didn't really see it as I was growing up. I didn't know how bad it actually was until I was much older and something happened. But it was a game changer once it actually did. So I'm just going to go ahead and
go for
speak to this.
The event.
About 9 years ago, Jeff, I ended up calling CPS on my dad because I believe he had molested.
Right.
Yes, because I believe he had molested my niece.
Wow.
And I also believe it happened to my sister all throughout her childhood. And this really blew my life up. Like, my brother wouldn't believe it. None of my family would believe, even though that there were tons of warning signs and little hints throughout our life. But nobody wanted to admit it. When it's something that heavy that really shatters your idea of your life, because when this happened, my entire life felt like a lie. And I had to really start evaluating everything and really start reflecting on my entire life and everything that I had done.
Wow.
And so I read a book. This was before I found out about my family, but I read a book by Brene Brown called Daring Greatly.
Okay.
And she studied shame and vulnerability for 10 years before she wrote the book.
Wow. Yeah.
So
yeah.
this gave me the understanding that, okay, vulnerability isn't as it seems. If we envision ourselves, like Jeff, if you were to envision yourself getting up on stage and telling all your friends and family and everyone that you know that the first time that you had sex, you somewhat raped your girlfriend. I mean, the amount of shame and guilt and fear that just runs through your body, you're like, oh my God, nobody would ever understand that. Like, they're going to hate me. They're going to shame me. My life will be over.
Right. Or I'll be in jail, or I'll be shunned and sent to an island.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or whatever. It's like my life would be over if everyone knew X.
Right. And this was something.
I think we all have many of those, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking to this story because that's exactly what happened when I was 16. I mean,
Right.
you'll read exactly how it happened. I know that you've read exactly how it happened. It was.
I don't think I got that far yet, but I had listened to other podcasts and I kind of got the gist. So,
okay.
Yeah. If you want to get into it, feel free. But
yeah, well, it was just something that I held a lot of shame and guilt about for a long time.
Yeah.
And I didn't want anyone to ever know that. I kept that in, and no one would ever know about that. Like my girlfriend at the time, she never told anyone.
Wow. Yeah, she was ashamed too, probably, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was a thing that we both felt bad about, and I felt extreme guilt and shame about. But it's funny because when you think about you, Jeff, saying that, you're like, nobody's going to understand. But if you see someone else do it,
yeah,
when somebody else does it,
when you
you're
get
like,
on a podcast and say, I did this.
Right.
And I told everyone, then it gives everyone else to permission to go, wow, he just said that on a podcast. I've been through that. I've been through that on the other side. So I can tell that story later. So,
and it comes off as courageous. You see somebody else up on stage talking about all these terrible things that they've done. Like, man, that guy has a lot of courage, or that girl has a lot of that takes a
check out the balls on that guy.
But for
not
whatever
only
reason,
to say it, it would be one thing to say it to a therapist, but to go on a podcast, or God forbid, write a book about it. Yeah, balls of steel. Nick.
Yeah, but it's this
true.
But when you really flip that switch in your head, that you really get a deep understanding, and I don't think you can get a deep understanding of how vulnerability works unless you actually test it for yourself, because that's how a lot of things in life work. The concepts are great. Like, you understand the concept of vulnerability, that if I open up and share these heavy things, it's going to help other people feel more comfortable. They'll be able to open up to me about things. But for whatever reason, when we think about putting it into practice, there's so much fear that comes up that people are not going to understand. They're going to hate me. But for whatever reason, other people do it. Great. I can't do it, though. They're not going to understand if it's me.
Right.
And I'm here to be living proof and to really show you that. I mean, Jeff, I write about all sorts of things in my book that no one would ever know. Like, literally not a soul on earth. There wasn't even only me.
Right.
And I write about these things that you would be so embarrassed for anyone to know.
Right.
And we're all human. We all have it.
Everybody's doing that. Everybody's doing that. Yes.
And
the only thing that they're not doing is writing books and being on podcasts. Right.
And not everybody has to write a book about all the terrible things they've done and opening up. But my story is meant to be told.
Maybe they should. And even if you don't publish the book, right?
Right.
Do it for
Writing
yourself.
It out.
Yes.
Exactly.
And share it with somebody like you love, that you know you can trust. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And it builds a deeper relationship. That person that you open up to is going to feel more comfortable opening up to you about things in their past. Like, I have had friends from high school open up to me about things that I never have known. We've been friends our entire lives, pretty much. And until they read my book, or until they really heard me talk about some of the things in my book, they felt comfortable enough to open up to me about things that really heavy things that happened when they were a child, or things that they did when they were a child. And the weight that's lifted off just telling a friend, just having at least one person that you can open up to, it allows more healing to come in. And Jeff, I'm a big believer that if you do, let's say, that happened when I was 16 and I never told a soul. I just shoved it down, just kept shoving it down and never let it out, never told anybody about it.
Right.
I believe that will come back.
It
in
keeps coming
some
back.
way, shape, or
Yes.
form.
Yeah. That what you're talking about, there's all these different terms, right? But like all of your secrets to me, like if you bury those secrets, they become part of that shadow self that we try to deny, right? So I've got a
100%.
big list of shadow self stuff. Everyone does, right?
We all do.
Everybody has
We
a
all
big
do.
list. So I remember towards the beginning of, I think it was this podcast or a different podcast, I was at that time being on other podcasts, right? And this woman was sharing some deep stuff, right? And I sort of casually mentioned on her show, by the way, by the way, I went through several depression and suicide attempts, right? Just trying to be open and honest. I was okay with it, right? I had this was back in the 90s and when I was in Hawaii. So if you ever want to get depressed and suicidal, do it in Hawaii. It's a beautiful place. It's very healing, and family members just pop up because it's such a great place to visit. So I think God was looking out for me when I was depressed and suicidal, because everybody from like cousins and uncles, mom, dad, best friend from high school, they all showed up, and they looked at me like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Okay. So I was in that zone, right? But they knew. Oh, they knew. But they weren't saying anything either. So, but anyway, back to this podcast that I was on, right? So I go through the whole thing about the suicide attempts and, no-dos and rat poison and getting up and going to work. And so I just think it's like a part of the show. And then she kind of makes it the headline. And I'm like, ooh. Okay. That's on my Facebook page. So
Vulnerability.
I inadvertently let everyone in my family and everybody else know that in the 90s, I was depressed and had suicide attempts. And, oh God, everybody from my dad, my mom, auntie, right, friends, they're like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm okay now. I wasn't then." Right. And, it was great. That was kind of like the surprise. Like, it's like, had I ever shared that before? Like, I don't know if anybody, it's like, I wish it would have been more intentional. That was kind of an accidental share. I wasn't ready for the blowback. You were like, "I'm intentionally doing this. I know what's going to happen." Yeah. So if you're going to do this vulnerability sharing thing, make a plan. That would be, yeah. But anyway, let's get back to your story.
I appreciate you sharing your part of your story. That's a vulnerable thing to be open about. And
it is.
So many of us, go through those states. And I was incredibly depressed. I was suicidal, after all this stuff with my dad.
Depression is weird. We could talk for a whole hour just about what depression feels like. I remember like walking around looking at people going, "What's wrong with me?" What, they're just like having a day. They're going to work, and I can't think of anything but like sitting down and crying. There's something wrong with my brain right now. I had this little voice. I don't know about you, but I would take breaks from depression. I don't know if this is like a universal thing or I know there's different kinds of depression, but like if I would go hang out with friends and watch a movie or whatever, I would just say during this time, I'm going to be okay. As soon as I was alone again, I'm crying and, sad and like depressed again. Right. But I was taking breaks. That made it survivable, I think.
And I think something that made it all survivable for me is that I was constantly staying busy. So I was
Yeah,
very rarely alone.
that works.
So yeah, so I was working all the time. I was a high school geometry teacher and a football coach during that
Ah,
year. So I was working about 70 hours a week, and
wow.
then
Yeah.
I was living with my sister and a friend. So I would come home. There was always stuff going on. So I was just keeping myself preoccupied. But underneath it all, I mean, I was upset with God. Like, why would a good God allow such
Right.
terrible things to exist? Like,
Yes.
yeah, I've done messed up things, but I still felt like I was a good person. And why would, not that it was about me, about what my dad did or everything, but it just felt like, okay, I'm trying to do the right thing and life just keeps getting worse. Like, what is happening? Why is this happening?
Mm.
And, that year, I don't know if you got to this part in the book or you heard this on a podcast, but I was looking for answers. And if you are suicidal, um, again, there's lots of try a therapist, try all the other routes that you can. But if you're at your wit's end, psychedelics can be something that can really
Okay.
help open you up. And I mean, I'm just saying, if it's the very last thing, because I was ready to die. I was looking in the mirror more suicidal than I'd ever thought.
Mm. Wow.
And I ended up learning how to extract DMT, which is the active ingredient in ayahuasca.
Right.
And you can smoke it. And when you do, if you do enough, I completely left my body. And I went in with a lot of questions for God, like pissed off at God, like why, why?
Been there, done that. Yep.
And I came back. I had absolute certainty that, okay, my dad has to be him for me to be me. We have to have
Wow.
the darkness to have the light.
Right.
I didn't
Wow.
know that I was going to be sharing have all this poetry to share with people. I didn't know that I was going to have this book to share with people. But can I share a 45-second poem, Jeff?
Of
Because
course.
we're talking about being broken. And
Share as many poems
that-
as you like, Nick.
all right, you guys ready?
We're poem friendly.
All right, I like it. Lay down your armor and pick up your heart. Your dreams are waiting as you painfully fall apart. And when the last piece falls and your heart is wide open, you'll understand it all and give thanks for being broken. So, Jeff, as you know, that poem is about my entire life falling apart. And I didn't, when you're in the midst of it, you cannot understand like why do I feel so terrible? Why am I so depressed? Why is life just so bleak and terrible? Like just like you were when you're going through that
Yeah.
stage. And Jeff, my belief and my understanding and my experiences have led me to every time you go through one of those downs, which life is all about ups and downs, it never stops.
Right.
But every time you go through one of those downs and you make it through, you're going to come out the other side with more empathy, more compassion, more understanding to everyone else that you may come in contact in the world, because you can't truly understand depression unless you've been through it yourself. And
Right.
when now, you seem like you're in a good place, you're healthy. And if somebody comes to you with depression or whatever they may be going through, you have the empathy and you have the compassion because you have experienced that, you have lived it, and you've made it through.
Unfortunately.
And you know that,
I don't know.
you know
sure.
that it's a
Right.
fortunate and unfortunate.
It is. It's both. You're right.
It makes us better.
It's actually a superpower now that I think about it, because
100%.
when people talk about suicide and depression without the experience, they're kind of walking on eggshells, where when you've
Right.
been in it, it's a different story. right? So like if somebody came up to me and said I was depressed and I was suicidal, I'd raise my hand and go, me too, right? So I think as soon as that other person that's still in the depression says, you say me too, right? Their walls are going to go, okay, can I talk to you about that? Because it seems like you're okay now, right? Yeah.
And sometimes those, I really think it's important that, if someone is opening up to you about how they're depressed or whatever might be going on, first and foremost, don't try to jump straight to advice on telling what people they need to do or what's going to help or, they just need someone to listen to them.
Yeah.
And just maybe, give them a hug and just be compassionate and not have any judgment at all and just try to be completely open and understanding. And
that's not so guys like to jump right to, oh, this is what you need to do. Right.
We want to fix it.
Fix it. Exactly. That's what guys want to do. They just fix it. Oh, this is a problem. We can fix it. Right. No. Yeah. You just have to listen.
Like that all the time.
Yeah. That whole listening as a superpower is when you start doing it in a I guess a heartfelt way. If your heart is aligned and you're in that, your personal state is ready. Oh my gosh. I mean, it's like, that's a really huge superpower. Just listening without judgment is huge.
It really is. And I can tell that, you've been through enough to know how important that is. So I appreciate your compassion, openness, and empathy.
Hey, I try. I try. We're all in it together. We've been through some shit.
We're all trying.
That's right.
We're all doing our best.
You kind of learn these things, right? Like when I went through my depression and suicide attempts, and I come out the other side years later, right? After no professional therapy, by the way, just kind of like muddling through and getting in trouble again. But you I think when I was in depression, I thought there was, remember when you're in high school, maybe you do, maybe you don't, when they would say, I just want you to know this is going down on your permanent record. Right? Yeah. And it's like God is up there in the high school principal's office and it's got like a checklist with Nick Moore and Jeff Smith, right? And it's like, oh yeah, well, depression, right? And all the shit you've done. And if you get so many X's, they're just going to throw you away. There's that is a notion that I don't know where that comes from, but it seems true.
That's cancel culture. And now that's
exactly right. We're throwing you away. Right.
Yeah.
Yes. 100%. So yes, there's another thing that I took out of that was that there is a level of absurdity, especially to, Western society, that is paradoxical and absurd. And that's just the way it is. All of your crying and suicide attempts is not going to change that. So you just kind of have to accept that too. Right. I was like, I remember crying in my bedroom saying, this is fucking stupid. Why am I here? Talking about the world,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what is the point?
What is the point of this fucking stupid shit that we're doing?
God just put us down here to kick us in the nuts over and over again? Like, this is pointless.
Amen.
Why did you do
Been
this?
there, done that.
Yep.
Yeah. So I want to pick at a little bit like that experience. So what sort of lessons did you take away, and what was that experience like? Because I've had similar experiences without the DMT. I've never done any psychedelic. I've done a lot of meditation.
Meditation's great. And breath work.
Breath work, yeah.
You can reach,
holotropic.
You can reach these.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, you can reach these really high levels of psychedelic experiences without actually taking psychedelics. You can, with intense breath work, you can, that's ultimately the strongest thing that we have is the use of the breath. Now, can I say that I've actually left my body using my breath? No. but I've had some psychedelic experiences with breath work. I
For
have,
sure.
it's made me just bring up so much emotion, just be crying. And it's interesting. You don't really know what's going to come up, but it's just bringing up so much emotion as you just are huffing and puffing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Breathing
a
is
very
amazing.
interesting concept.
Yeah, breathing is amazing. So like I just mentioned this on another show, but like I don't know if have you ever smoked cannabis? Are you a fan? I'm only just
Yes.
getting back into it now.
Mm-hmm.
But I did a bunch of have you ever heard of Tantra?
Yes.
So Tantra, to me, you can say what you want about Tantra, but to me, it's like seeking connection to the divine through like stimulating sexual experiences. Let's go with that. Okay.
That's a great definition.
Yeah. So there's this service in LA where you can get what they call tantric massage. And while you're getting that massage, they're having you do deep breathing. Right. And oh my God. That's really when I learned like the power of that breath, because it's like the more you breathe and the more you focus on that breath, the more, I don't know how to say it. It's going to deepen the experience. How's that sound?
Psychedelic.
Yeah, totally. I left my
literally
body.
is psychedelic.
Yes, during some of those sessions. So yeah, that's when you get to that. Like, I don't know how many times I want to knock on that door, because like what I learned is like, you're okay, everything's all right. Get back to work. You work here. Check in on a regular basis, but you're all right, you know?
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, let's keep going with your story.
Yeah, well, a big aha, other than, coming back and realizing, okay, my dad has to be him for me to be me.
Yes.
The darkness comes from the light.
Right.
We have to have the dark to have the light.
It's the same
Is
coin,
knowing that,
it's different sides,
yeah,
basically.
it's
Light,
exactly.
dark, right. It's
And
only
something
one
that
thing.
can help.
Right.
Right. And just because I had that awakening experience didn't mean that, life isn't going to continue with the ups and downs. The ups and downs will continue to happen.
Right. And it's just an opening of a door, and you have to go through, right? And it's a beginning. That event is a beginning, and the process is going to start there, not end there. I think people miss that.
And it can really change your perception and perspective. So
yeah.
Now that I have this deep understanding, let's say, after I came out of that first EMT experience, is that, okay, not only do I understand that, the darkness has to be here, but I also have a deep understanding that everything is absolutely perfect all the time.
Totally.
Like it always has been.
Right.
It always will be.
Right.
These little things that you can remind yourself of on a daily basis when things aren't going well, when something doesn't go as planned, when a friend does something that, feels bad for you. If you can just continue to go back to these little reminders that everything's perfect, it's all okay, this is working out for the best. I mean, even when it feels like it doesn't feel true at first, I'm a big believer in faking it till you make it.
Right. It's difficult.
Yeah. It's like the self-love thing.
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
a big believer in self-love.
We can talk about that. Yeah.
There are over 1,000 videos of me on social media going into the mirror and pressing record and telling myself how beautiful I am, how much I love myself. I mean, I'll do it in all sorts of goofy accents. I'll do it like a flamboyant gay guy or like a girl. I mean,
that's one of my favorites. The flamboyant.
Yeah, it's
so fun.
We're all goofy.
Yes.
We all have a goofy side of us.
Right.
And so many of us are taught that, okay, after I get out of childhood, I'm not supposed to be goofy anymore. I'm not supposed to let that side of me be seen. I need to be this serious adult.
Right.
And man, the more serious you are with yourself in the mirror, or the more hard you are on yourself, the more serious you're going to be with everybody else you come in contact with, the more hard on other people. And people feel that. I'm over the past, 5 or 6 years, I've been told by so many people, like the impact that I have on them just being around them because I'm an incredibly positive person and I'm always looking at the bright side. And that doesn't mean that crap doesn't still happen and that I don't still have stress and that, emotions of all sorts don't come up.
Right.
But it's these little small reminders that if you can just keep staying positive in your own mind, the voice in your head can literally be trained. It's not something that just happens overnight, but little by little, if you just keep on training that voice in the head, that is just, it should be your biggest cheerleader. Imagine that you just got a little guy or a little girl in your head that is just cheering you on and just believes in you 100%. Try to bring that voice out, that little cheerleader, try to bring it out more and more. And it may not feel like you at first. It might feel like you're faking it. That's okay.
Yeah.
Just keep on getting that voice to get stronger and stronger every day until it becomes a normalcy. And then you'll really start to feel that and you're going to start impacting other people in that positive way as well.
One of the things that I think like a turning point for me, and I think I read it in a book and didn't believe it, like what you just said. Have you ever read any of the Eckhart Tolle stuff?
Oh, yeah. He's spot on with that.
Yeah. So I think I was reading either one of the two books that was really huge back in the day, like Power of Now or New Earth, one of those two. And he talked about how he was mad at himself. He's like, I can't stand myself. and then he had this epiphany about like, who's the self that's hating the other self? There can't be two of me. Yes. Right. But we all have these voices in our head, right? So I think, I was struggling with that. Like my analytical, brain was going, wait, what? I was just super confused. And as I sat with that, and just kind of let it percolate, right? I was like, so all of these things about like, okay, we're all just kind of one thing. Right. And if I hate me, then that means like the universe hates me. Right. And I know that's not true because I've been reading all these books that says the universe is just love. Right. Or consciousness or conscious love or consciously loving or whatever. But the universe can't hate me. That's impossible. Right. So if any of this shit makes sense, I have to assume the universe is on my side. That was like a bedrock aha for me. It was like, oh my God. I can't believe one without another, right? So if you're talking about oneness all the time and you're beating yourself up, you better take a step back. Now, there's nothing wrong with self-criticism when you're trying to make yourself better with love. Right? You don't want to be Pollyanna and just go, well, whatever happens, it's okay. No. No.
And, I'm a perfectionist. That's something that I try to get better about. But, when you're publishing a book and you're self-publishing, perfectionism can be a good thing. But my book still isn't perfect. If you are focused that things have to absolutely be perfect, you're not going to really get too far. But knowing that I'm perfectly imperfect.
Yes.
Yeah. Like
that. I heard Brene Brown talk about that, like that whole addiction to perfection. So I think what you want to, just a piece of advice, you don't have to take it. This is coming from Brene, not Jeff. What her suggestion was she has a commitment to excellence for her work. And that's what you have, right? So it's not going to be perfect because humans aren't perfect, right? Math is perfect.
It definitely is.
But it's very abstract, right? But it's always perfect, right? There's always an answer, right? That's why if you're seeking perfection, just do some math, but you have to accept.
I love that.
So let's talk about like how you let go of the opinions of others, because I think this is a big thing for me. It always has been, like, just what will they think? And I'll tell myself I don't care, but I think we all care, right? So it's like an almost a daily practice of reminding yourself that like all those people that don't know me don't care about me.
Right.
And that's okay, right?
And it is the most incredibly freeing thing when you're able to truly let go of what other people are thinking about you. Now, I can't be, I can't tell you that I don't care about what people think about my book. Like my book, it's been 6 years in the work. This has been my life mission and my life work is to bring this book to life. And there's, the ego part of me wants everyone to love it. I want it to help everyone.
Of course.
And that's just simply not how life works. There are always gonna be haters. There's gonna be people that don't understand. So yeah, the hardest opinion to let go of typically is your parents. That's if you had a decent relationship with your parents,
Right.
Or your family members or your high school friends, whatever. These people have you in a box. They say, okay, this is Nick. This is who he is. And for me, it's like, all right, Nick is this football player. He's a meathead. He's tough.
Jim
he's
Rat.
a smart guy.
Right.
But, this is the box that I have him in. And once I was able to, and life forced me into this, it forced me into not giving a damn what my parents thought because of what I learned or what that I found or, my experience.
Right.
But if you can let go of that, it is the most freeing thing because you can truly find out who you are. You really don't know deep down what you're capable of unless you don't care about what other people think. And when you do stop caring about what other people think, like really, really, truly stop caring, oh my God, the amount of acceptance and love and all the things that you've been wanting that you thought that you had to put on this mask for. You thought you had to be this certain type of person or you can't let these sides be seen because we all want love. We all want acceptance. That's what we all crave and that's what we all need and want. But the way to gain more of that is to push through the uncomfortability of letting yourself be seen, taking that mask off and be like, hey, this is all of me. I'm a goofy dude. I, like X, Y, and Z. And this is, whatever it may be, whatever you're hiding is ultimately a lot of your most power. Like there's somebody out there looking for the kind of weird that you have. Like the part of you that you're not letting be seen.
Right.
Somebody else is looking for that. Like somebody else loves that.
Yeah.
So you're really blocking yourself from a deeper human experience because whatever it is that you think people won't understand, I promise there's a group of people that is waiting for you to come out in the open and be yourself.
Yeah. And show out.
Yep. So Jim Carrey is one of my all-time favorite actors.
Oh my goodness.
And
that guy's great.
He said, and I'm not going to say it perfectly, but it was when he was doing some stand-up or he was like the opener at some comedy club or something. And he said once he realized that the crowd is going to respond well to him not giving a shit what they think, because he would come out and say, hey, howdy, how's it going? All right, alrighty then. And just not even like let them respond because he just doesn't even care. He's just up there. Just
how's it going? Alrighty then.
Himself.
Yes.
Yeah. He's not even letting them respond, but that was an aha moment for him. He's like, oh, I just need to be myself and just, it's not about trying to people please. I don't need to put on a face to make people laugh. I'm just a funny person. So if I'm just be myself, then great. The more of what, and The definition of the self,
Mm.
we truly, most of us don't fully know what lies underneath.
Yeah.
And it's because of this childhood experience or this parental experience or jobs or whatever it may be that is telling you that you need to be a certain way or act a certain way or
Totally.
whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Those things are holding you back from really becoming who your truest self is. And if you can let go of that opinion, the opinions of others, you're going to see your life blossom. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you named your book, is it Who I Am or Who Am
who
I?
am I?
Who am I? So is that answered in the book? Because it's an intriguing question that it's interesting to me. So
Yeah. So I wrote, when I first came up with that title, I had absolutely no intention of actually answering the question. My whole
the book is the
my
answer.
whole thing what I was really trying to help people understand is that we are not defined by our past.
Okay.
So in my past, you can, I've done things that, or I did something when I was 16 where you can say, hey, Nick is a rapist, or hey, Nick is X, Y, and Z. Nick, whatever. Nick
He's
is
a
an
racist.
addict, whatever.
He's
Right. He's an addict. He's all these, negative terms.
These labels.
Right. What I was trying to help people understand is that nothing in my past can define who I am.
Gotcha.
Now, if we try to hide things in our past, if we try to act like they're not there, if we aren't able to actually reflect and be real and actually have remorse and try to deepen that understanding of, hey, how do I grow and learn from that? How do I become a better person from that experience? If we don't do that, the past will continue to define us. That's going to come back in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to help people see that, all right, if you're able to reflect on it and really have that self-reflection and own it. Yeah. Own it. Who you are. Own your story.
That. And say what you think about it now, right?
Exactly. Let's get real about it, because then you're actually doing the work. You're healing that stuff. You're growing, and you're going to be a better person.
I think the natural programmed response would be hide that forever. Hide that until you die. That's what the world would tell you to do.
Right.
Hey, nobody knows that. Don't tell, right?
Exactly.
Says the world. Yes. Yeah.
But Jeff, on that whole, the answering the who am I question, the very last thing written in my book, so here's a little bit of a spoiler, is a poem that is also titled Who Am I?
Okay.
And
go for it.
I'm going to just go for it.
Go for it.
If I were born David, I would have defeated Goliath. If I were born Judas, I would have betrayed Jesus. If I were born Gandhi, I would have freed India. If I were born Hitler, I would have massacred millions. If I were born you, I'd be listening to this now. So the way I wrote that, Jeff, is that I would be reading this now.
Yeah.
And my intention on writing that is to help bring more compassion, forgiveness, understanding, and less judgment in the world. I really, of course, we don't condone what Hitler did. That is not my purpose behind that.
Right.
But it's saying that I am acknowledging that there is not something innately better than another person. We are all the same. We're all here just playing our roles on this epic story of Earth. I see Earth as just one of infinite epic stories. This is, and I don't see that God is just the creator. I believe that God is also the experiencer. So why would
Yeah.
God just want to sit back and watch? Why wouldn't he want to be immersed into it, into
Right.
every single role? And what's a good, a good story without bad? You got to have the ups
Right.
and downs. A good movie has
The most
heartbreak. It
horrible
has
villain you can
exactly,
imagine. And that you don't
exactly
get better than Hitler when it comes to horrible villains.
right. So just
Right.
really trying to keep that poem in your mind that, okay, everybody is just another me. We're all just doing our best.
Another me. Yeah.
Yeah,
You and I see the universe the same, right? So
it's,
when you see someone struggling, well, when I
mhm,
see other people struggling, I go, I remember when I did that. Like I was out with my wife, and there was this guy, very passionately talking about, oh crap. Of course I blank on his name. Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell.
there you go.
Okay. So Joseph Campbell, I guess he was a college professor, but wrote a lot of books all about mythology and just so good. Right. So I think, and like, I think his tagline is follow your bliss. So I think a lot of people go through their Joseph Campbell chapter, right? Okay, now I'm into Joseph Campbell. And when you hit Joseph Campbell, you go out and tell the world about Joseph Campbell. And I was at this, I don't know where the hell I was. I was at somewhere with my wife, like at a restaurant or a party or whatever. And I hear myself talking through another person's body about Joseph Campbell. And I'm like, I remember when I was that guy. And she's like, you're nuts. But I get it. Yeah. So like, we're all like in the infinite world. I mean, we're all Hitler, right? I mean,
Yeah, it's about finding that compassion.
yeah.
You know,
Can you forgive Hitler? No, you don't condone the action, right? You hate the sin, not the sinner. I guess that's right.
and it's a good reminder that, okay, when something happens during your day that somebody pisses you off, does something, or you just can't understand, like, man, that person's just a piece of whatever.
Right.
Really reminding yourself that, okay, if I was him, I'd be in that. We have no idea what that person is going through today.
Exactly.
They might have just lost their spouse the day before.
Right.
Their child might have just found out that they have cancer. You have
They could be depressed
absolutely,
and suicidal right
yeah,
now.
exactly. I mean, we just don't know.
Right.
So trying to remind yourself that, hey, I don't know what that person's going through. If I was born in their shoes, if I had their brain, their experiences, I'd be right.
You would be doing
where they
exactly
are.
what they're doing. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
if you try to think any other way, then there's this just innately better than within you that
Right.
I think really needs to be analyzed and reflected on. That, is that helping anyone to think that I am just innately better than other people in the world? How is that going to reflect in my daily life, and how are other people going to respond to that to me?
Right.
I promise that's not the best way to find more love and compassion in your life. The more love and compassion that you have for yourself, and the more love and compassion that you have for everyone, the more of that will come back into your own life in many ways. And my life and my book are living proof of that. I have a lot of love and support in my life. I have so many people that care and want to support, and this is just the beginning. My story's only been out for a month now. So it's still at the early stage, and
Yeah.
I've been trying to share my story before it was even published. And the more open and vulnerable I've been in my life, the more the world has just opened its arms to me and be like, hey, you're doing great. You're not alone. Keep shining, keep spreading love, compassion, and vulnerability, and everything else will work out.
Yeah. I mean, you're on the path, brother. Yeah. I don't know if I've ever met somebody so like immediately raw and open, like in the moment, just like, yeah, I've never been to any 12-step programs, but you've got a 12-step vibe, but on the other side, the coming out, the recover.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're like there should be a 12-step program for people that never got addicted because it's amazing. Anyway,
I've actually been told that something similar to that before.
Yeah. So have you talked to other folks like in AA or any other 12-step program when they're in it, right? A lot of their filters are just gone, right? Like it's like they have to get, like you were saying, like broken, like completely broken. You get a little antisocial, which is kind of okay, right? Because you're going through a healing journey, but it's almost like you've got to go back and pick and choose. Okay, I gotta filter this a smidge, not always, right? But like you can't just walk around all the time.
Right. And it's a process. It's not like it just all happens at once. Not like you're just going to be, hey, I heard this guy, Nick, talk on a podcast. Now I can just tell everyone everything and I feel great.
It's not you're done.
It's a muscle.
It's a process. And you have to keep working on it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like the voice in the head. The voice in the head and the ability to be vulnerable is something that takes practice and work. But the more you do it, the more you start seeing results and the more you're going to start seeing the world open up to you. So
make friends with the voices in your head. I love this. It's very, so very good advice. Yes. I call the voice in my head Coach, and he sounds just like me.
That's great. I love that.
He's very funny and he likes beer. So as we wrap up, let's talk a little bit more about the vulnerabilitybook.com and how people can get a free chapter.
Yeah. So if you go to that website, you'll see that there is a link to click and you can read the first chapter. And also from that website, you can click and there's a link to lead you to the Amazon page where you can actually purchase the book.
Yep.
It is on Kindle and there's a paperback and a hardcover. And hopefully by the time this airs, it might be a few weeks after this airs, the Audible will be coming out. Awesome. If you do enjoy the sound of my voice and you want to hear me tell you the story, then I'm happy to read you the entire book.
Wow. That's, bless you. Because when I think about let me just ask, was that like a fun process or was it extremely difficult?
At all. So reading
super tedious, right?
I had recorded myself on my phone reading the book before. This was before it was quite all the way done. But reading it in a studio, reading aloud and reading aloud perfectly are two very different things. And reading aloud perfectly can be it wasn't the most fun, but I know that
you did it. It was worth it.
Yep. You gotta
this book, it has to be you. It just has to be you.
Exactly.
You can't pay somebody to be you. You have to do that.
Right. It's my personal story.
It's your book. And, yes, it's your story. Yep. Yeah. So thanks for doing that work. Because
thanks, man.
That is I just imagine. So I knew this author, and the way he sold his books was giving them away for free as audio podcasts. And I just listened to him and he's doing character voices and he's doing, like everything, right? He's like the voiceover guy and he's like every character in a book and he's doing characterizations. I'm like, even like putting my brain on it, I just kind of shudder with just how much work that would be. And he's not doing it in a studio. He's doing it in a closet in his house by himself. Right. So, so thank you. That was a lot of labor of love, as they say. Yes.
It is a labor of love and doing big things, really trying to help bring more healing to the world. We all need it. We need more vulnerability in the world. So
I'm going to share one more thing. And I love this. So I got so lucky. So before I had my depression and my suicide attempts, I met he was a college professor and it was like a freshman speech class. I think it was like Speech 101, right? And he was like a working attorney, but not a trial lawyer. He was more like a mediator kind of thing, was his day job. And I don't know why, but he just liked me, and he invited me to his house, and we had lunch. And then I think it was before lunch, he was like, have you ever had energy work? And I'm like, I don't know what energy work is, but no. So we did energy work. Basically, I laid down on this massage table. Nothing sexual happened. Okay. Don't go there. But he just basically it was kind of like Reiki, if you've ever heard of Reiki, where he's not touching me, but he's just putting his hands like 6 inches above different parts of my body. Right. And that lasted maybe 45 minutes or so. And every once in a while he would go over to the sink and wash his hands with clean water. And oh my goodness, I don't know what the hell happened, but most of it was contrived by my ego, but it did wake me up. And I think that was probably the beginning of that journey of into depression and coming out. But one of the things he said was after that and during lunch, he was like, one of the most profound things I've ever heard in my life was there was this guru sitting on a beach, and we were in Hawaii at the time. So I can imagine, sitting on a beach. And he was like, he heard this voice, and he said, the voice said, we're not here to judge, know, or compare. And I went, okay, I'm going to put that in my notes. Right. And it just sort of sat there and marinated for years and years and years because it didn't make any sense. And then he said, oh, and by the way, everything you do in your life is because of fear. You're a fear-driven being. And you can start working on that, and I can help, right? And so anyway, I just felt a little compelled to share that. I don't know why, but anyway.
Yeah, I'm glad you did. Every decision that we make is based out of fear or love.
Correct.
The more you can remind yourself of that,
right.
Like when you have a decision or when you are deciding whether or not to say something or whatever, try to ask yourself, is this out of fear or love? Am I doing this out of fear or love? And the more you can ask yourself that, it's a good reminder. So.
I think just asking the question, you're going to know the difference immediately.
Right.
It's a feel,
Yep.
You don't, once you, so you have to just remember to ask the question. Hey, coach, is this fear or love? All right, Nick, I think we could probably talk for another 3 hours, but you have a life.
Yeah, I agree.
So do I. So I will let you go.
Great.
All right.
Jeff, I really enjoyed the talk. And you can find my book on Amazon, Who Am I? Vulnerability Equals Powerability. And Jeff, I appreciate you having me. And embrace vulnerability, embrace really putting yourself out there. You are loved, and work on that voice in the head, guys. I love y'all.
Make friends with the voices in your head. Thanks, Nick. Yeah. Have a good one, brother.
Thanks, Jeff.
Aloha.
Thanks,
mahalo.
Aloha.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.